Hi there. I've got the Autoimmune formula in the ultrasonic jewelry cleaner, and I'd like to talk a little bit about arthritis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. I've been battling the osteoarthritis since about, since the mid-80s. They saw the cartilage in my knee was getting less and less, and on x-rays. And then in 2016, I started having some serious debilitating problems with, it's either rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis. I went to a rheumatologist. All the tests were negative, but there is such a thing as seronegative. So I just want to review a little bit of my experience with different types of arthritis. At one time, they thought that the cartilage declining was wear and tear. And then in 2011, there was a publication in November by Robinson, which showed that osteoarthritis, it's not a wear and tear, it's a disease of inflammation where the body is actually attacking the cartilage and breaking down the cartilage. And then a few years after, at that time, I was taking some very strong painkillers so I could sleep. Tramadol, 100 milligrams, twice a day, time release. And I was suffering. I was suffering a lot. And I was in physical therapy. I was going to a office where a chiropractor where they used ultrasound and a TENS unit, which helped a lot with the pain and discomfort. So eventually I bought my own ultrasound unit. It was less than $100 in the gel, but you got to just be really careful not to stop moving it. It can burn you inside if you don't use it properly. And I used to use the TENS unit all the time. And then the real change started when I went gluten-free in 2011. I read a book by William Davis called Wheat Belly. And he's a very persuasive person. And it persuaded me to stop all gluten, which was very difficult. It took about 5 weeks to really get it cleared. And then I think it was about 6 months later, I came across some publications about a supplement called undenatured type 2 collagen. And when I started taking that, the pain almost immediately dropped from around a 6 down to a 1 in about a week. And at the time I was in therapy to help with the knee pain. And a month later, the pain started to come back. And I remember I was talking to the chiropractor about it, and he said, well, we're doing whatever we can do. So he gave me the name of an orthopedic surgeon, and I was about to, go see another one. They always told me the same thing, eventually it's going to get so bad you're going to need a joint replacement, and we can give you a cortisone shot, but only 2 of them. And otherwise, NSAIDs, and I can't use NSAIDs because they cause stomach ulcers for me. And so anyway, that night I went home and I looked closely at the bottle of the undenatured type 2 collagen I was taking. I'd been taking it for a month, had run out, and started taking another one, which I thought was identical. And it wasn't. So I had done a blind experiment on my own. One of them was Arthromax, and the other one was Arthromax Advanced. Well, the plain Arthromax didn't have this substance in it. Well, it so happened I had got the same substance from another vendor. I think it was NOW. So I immediately started taking it, and within 2 or 3 days, I was pretty sure I was seeing, and within a week, it was definitely, the pain was way down low again. And it's just a small pill. It's been tested in numerous clinical trials. One that was done by Harvard, every person in the study showed improvement. So I've been taking that since 2012. I take it at night on an empty stomach. Normally if I get up during the night, I'll have a glass of water sitting there. And it's just a small pill, and don't double the dose. because it's designed for 10 milligrams to get into your bloodstream, but they include 40 milligrams in the because not all of it gets into your bloodstream. That's why it helps to take it on an empty stomach. And if you double the dose, for some reason, it won't work as effective. And it's really interesting the way it works. It triggers certain cells in the intestine that are involved in training the immune system, teaching the immune system what's part of the body and what's not. So it's intervening in a very upstream juncture. So I can't think of the name of those cells right now in the intestine. But anyway, also something I discovered over the years was that no matter what supplements I take, no matter nothing will help if I eat over a certain amount of carbohydrate. I used to find out, I used to go to a box store and have lunch there. I would have a couple slices of pizza. Well, I could eat 2 slices of pizza, but not 1. I mean, I could eat 1 slice of pizza, but not 2. Because sure enough, 5 hours later, the pain would jump from around a 1 to, I don't know, probably an 8 to a 10. And it would be a throbbing pain, like I could feel it on my knee where it's bone on bone. It almost felt like somebody was pinching it with a little small tweezers. And as long as I stopped the carbohydrates, now this would happen if I ate 3 pieces of sugary fruit, like 2 peaches and a nectarine. You know, when they ripen in July, I get them sometimes from the market, the farmers, or a big bowl of regular ice cream. Same thing would happen. So when I had to really learn the hard way that if I go over 30 or 4 grams of carbs, I can eat like almost a cup of blueberries. I try to make sure they're wild. They aren't been domesticated to be higher in sugar. But if I go over 30, 40 grams, that really triggers my arthritis. And I didn't understand this for a long time. It didn't really make any sense. And then there was a publication in March of 2018, and it was published in Science. And I have it here. And it came out of the Weizmann Institute in Israel. And what they found was that by 3 different methods they investigated, in vivo, with human cells, in vitro, and with human subjects, that when your blood glucose goes up, this is directly involved in causing intestinal permeability, what's commonly called leaky gut. And now foreign particles can get into the bloodstream. And this is where this causes the immune system to get confused, and it starts attacking your actual tissues. So this is pretty interesting that finally I understand why the carbohydrates are so damaging. Now, there's also, there's a lot of trouble going to orthopedic surgeons because, they train for 5 years to do surgery. And many of them, they won't tell you what things you can do to prevent osteoarthritis. Or, like I said, even I saw an orthopedic surgeon 2 years ago, and they told me the same thing they told me 25 years ago. We can, eventually the joint's going to be shot, and you need a replacement. We can give you cortisone shot or take NSAIDs. Now, there is one orthopedic surgeon who actually wrote a book. Now, he was a professional football player, so maybe his financial situation is a little bit better than. But anyway, he says in the book that 90% of people can avoid joint replacement if they adopt a lot of his suggestions, and a lot of it involves dietary changes. And now he didn't include that one supplement that I talked about, the undenatured type 2 collagen. But I think this book came out like 4 or 5 years ago. Richard Deanna, MD, highly recommended. Now, there's one other thing that I want to mention related to the foods we eat, that there's a lot of effort being made by very dedicated people, very knowledgeable people, to try and get the food guidelines changed. And I've actually written them letters about this. Now, these are the strategic goals for the Department of Agriculture. Goal 3, promote American agricultural products and exports. Goal 4, facilitate rural prosperity and economic development. Now, there's 7 goals here, right? Goal 7, provide all Americans access to a safe, nutritious, and secure food supply. Well, there's a lot of conflict of interest here. I mean, like I was saying, it's the high carbohydrates that's causing a lot of this trouble with arthritis. And all grains are high in carbohydrates, even the gluten-free grains, the sorghum and the millet. You know, I think one of them is 80% carbs and the other one's 60% carbs. So now if there's a conflict with the Department of Agriculture, are they going to go and recommend food products that is going to devastate the American agricultural farmers? No way. No way in a million years. So these people in the Department of Agriculture should not be supplying us with food guidelines that are, all the schools have to follow those food guidelines. And if you're sending your children to a school like in New York City, where you can't bring lunch to school, all the food is supplied so they don't get, some kids are, eating the real rich lunch, and some kids are eating, like they get this, everybody, oh, those guys, they stop it and they nip it in the bud. I think that's really important too. At a young age, these things leave a deep impression, that you shouldn't, they encourage children to stop trying. They found in Kenya, and the intervention they could do to most help children to do better in school was to supply a $5 uniform to all the poor students who their families couldn't afford a uniform, so that so they wouldn't start getting an attitude that don't try. So anyway, how we would ever get well, actually, a president could probably issue an executive order saying, no, the Department of Health is now responsible for the food guidelines. So anyway, that's my little venture into politics. I'm trying to stay out of politics completely. And actually, I did in a way, because I'm not saying anything about the Republicans or the Democrats. This is just something that I've written letters to people who are trying to get the food guidelines improved. Oh, when they came out with the first food pyramid, which they adopted that idea, I think it was from Sweden, the scientists had turned in recommendations to their leaders at the Department of Agriculture, the bureaucrats that are in charge. The guidelines of these scientists were totally ignored. And we didn't find out about this for like 30 years or so. I think they were recommended, like at the bottom of the food pyramid, they were recommending like 3 for the grains. And when the guidelines came out, it changed from 3 to 11. Which that makes sense, right? I mean, the head of the Department of Agriculture, he's trying to look out for the farmers. Duh. I mean, this is the way the world works. I mean, I could tell you stories. I mean, one of my professors, he was involved in some initial research at the Department of the Food, I guess it was at the Food and Drug Administration. They were examining different cosmetics. This is probably in the late 50s, early 60s. And they were taking these different cosmetics and placing them on the skin of different animals in a lab, rats or mice, and they found that some of these cosmetics were causing skin cancer. So these scientists thought that they had done something really wonderful for the American public. They turned in the reports. They turned them into their leader of this sector, this group, And then he started filing reports to the different committees in the Congress and the Senate. And then all of a sudden, he's getting all these calls from all these senators and congressmen. Like, what are you guys doing here? What are you saying? These companies are going to be destroyed. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what he said. I mean, the guy I talked to, my professor, he didn't, but I mean, you can imagine he said, well, look at it, I'm just filing reports. We're scientists, we do that, and we just, well, that next year, that division had their budget cut. Almost everybody lost their job, except the guy that was the head. Almost everybody else lost their job. And here these poor guys, they thought they were doing something wonderful. And then they wound up losing their job over it, you know. So anyway, I mean, that's the way it is. It is what it is. That's the way the world works. And so I hope this helps people, you know, think long and hard about what you eat. You know, it has a big impact on our health. Okay, thank you for listening. Oh, I almost forgot. I wanted to talk a little bit about the rheumatoid arthritis and the psoriatic arthritis. Now, like I said, in 2016, I started having some extremely serious, debilitating problems. I'd felt it coming in my shoulders for about 4 or 5 months. I stopped doing all shoulder exercises. You know, I've been a rock climber for 15 years, so I know how much strain my shoulders can take. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, I was having pains in both wrists, both shoulders, symmetrical joint pain. That's actually one of the signs of rheumatoid arthritis, where it's symmetrical. And then all of a sudden, out of clear blue, my wrist felt like it had a severe strain. I couldn't even brush my teeth with electric toothbrush. It was so tender. I couldn't wash the dishes with that hand. You know, I could maybe hold them, and then I had to wash them with the other hand. And then all of a sudden, like 8 or 10 hours later, it would just disappear. Gone. And then a week later, this happened again. And my shoulders were bothering me a lot. So this really shook me up, because my grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, and I remember she was in a wheelchair, she had to get special shoes, she had a lot of deformed joints. So this is when I kind of got put up against the wall. And it was around then I remembered I had heard that, you know, I looked up some of the different alternative medicine sites to learn about rheumatoid arthritis. And I came across one by Dr. Mercola. And that's where he had been treating, I think he had treated a couple thousand people for rheumatoid arthritis over the years. And he was initially doing, making use of an antibiotic. I think it was, I can't think of the name of the antibiotic. But then he developed a protocol that was more effective, where he didn't need the antibiotic. But anyway, within his review, he mentioned that rheumatoid arthritis is symmetrical, and it occurs first in the postal versus distal. I think it's the closer part of a joint versus the distant. But anyway, my pains were symmetrical. So, you know, I researched about rheumatoid arthritis, and I recollected I had heard that interview of Vince Giuliano, Giuliano, and then he had used, I found the interview online in an archive. He was interviewed by Joseph Cohen, and he had used 4 herbs. He had read like 12 or 13 books. Vince is a really brilliant person, brilliant scientist, and he determined there were 4 Ayurvedic herbs that helped him a lot: the ashwagandha, curcumin, ginger, and boswellia. So he made a formula of them, worked wonderful within a few months, and that worked for like 20 years. And then when the symptoms started to come back, he took those 4 herbs and, excuse me, he made a liposomal formula, and that worked again. So from right off the bat, I started right out with that liposomal. You know, I was up against the wall, and I added some other herbs that I thought had good potential: cat's claw, Pau D'Arco, Chinese peony, I was using Cordyceps at the time. And it was in less than a week I didn't have any more of those incidents at all, ever again, where I would get that debilitating pain in my wrist where I couldn't even, it felt like a severe strain. And within 2 weeks, all those pains were gone, except my shoulders. It turned out that the shoulders was actually in the tendons. It was the supraspinatus tendon in both shoulders. Well, that took about 2 months. Eventually, I found that out when I went to physical therapy. And the physical therapist, after a week or so probing around, she goes, "That's not your joint, that's the tendon." So that's why I think it's possible that this could be psoriatic arthritis versus rheumatoid arthritis. But which it is, there's functional medicine doctors like Dr. Terry Walls, who reversed her multiple sclerosis and got out of a gravity wheelchair she had been in for 2 years. They don't think an exact diagnosis is critical, because there's things in common for many autoimmune diseases. Now she's using a grain-free, dairy-free, homemade bone broth every day, 8 to 12 cups of vegetables, a mixture of cruciferous, which are leafy green and bright and colorful. And she's published clinical studies. I hear when she shows up, goes to conferences, like there'll be 1,000 people at a conference, she gets a standing ovation. And there's plenty of information about Terry Walls online. I actually have 1 or 2 of her books in the house, but I haven't got it with me right now. But so anyway, I've been using this formula, I call it an autoimmune formula, for 4.5 years. It works very well. The 7 key herbs I mentioned, and it just finished in the ultrasonic jewelry cleaner. So I'm going to go out and take it out of the cleaner and put it into the refrigerator. And I'll weigh it out, divide it by, when I'm going to take it over 3 weeks now. So 60, I think that's 66. I'll divide it by 66, and that'll give me how much a dose to take, taking it 3 times a day. So anyway, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, osteoarthritis. I've covered the 3 of them. There's something I forgot. There's an autoimmune publication by Dr. Gundry. It's at the, I think it was in circulation. It's at the AHA journal website. And I'm trying to remember some details. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't want to say anything I'm not sure. I'll get the publication and I'll show it on the screen. Because I think it was after 6 or 9 months, 80% of the people had their inflammatory cytokine levels normalized. He measures IL-6, interleukin 6, and TNF-alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha. He measures them every 3 months. And they had come into the normal range for, I think it was 80% after 6 or 9 months. But let me get back on that. I got to make sure I get the details correct. I mean, I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I don't want to make mistakes about something so easy to avoid. Okay, so thank you for listening. Well, I'm back. I went and dug out the study I was talking about. I'm sorry I didn't prepare it adequately, but I've been trying to keep up with any new developments with the COVID-19, especially as it relates to the heart and to the brain damage. So I've been going through like things like the daily updates at Science, the daily updates at Nature, and I'm finding things related, and they're quite substantially validate the other research that's showing this damage with the scars and the fibrosis. But anyway, so So here, I was talking about a publication by Dr. Gundry about autoimmune diseases. So I'll hold part of this up. And here's the reverse. Now this gets some controversy because it's what they call just an abstract. It's a poster presentation. It's not actually like a clinical trial. But for some reason, I don't know why people say it's not peer reviewed. Of course it's peer reviewed. The editors of the journal, they won't allow something like this in their journal unless they review it. Of course it's peer reviewed. Sometimes I think people they like to spread slander, bring it into this realm of science. But I think the first paragraph, I had, all autoimmune diseases are highly associated with increased rates of coronary artery and vascular disease secondary to immune cell attack on epithelial cells. The causes of autoimmune diseases seem to be multifactorial. However, the idea that derangement of the microbiome, breaches of the intestinal barrier, leaky gut, and introduction into the human diet of plant defense molecules such as lectins, which are capable of molecular mimicry, prompted our group to investigate the application of a lectin-limited diet coupled with probiotics and prebiotics to impact biomarker-proven autoimmune disease activity in humans and their impact on endothelial biomarkers of inflammation. So some of the things all patients initially had low vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is very important for the COVID-19. And low omega-3 index and adiponectin levels above 16 milligrams per deciliter. Biomarkers of inflammation, HSCRP, TNF-alpha, IL-6, fibrinogen, myeloperoxidase, and autoimmune markers were measured every 3 months. It's pretty neat. He collects data like that every 3 months, and maybe every 3 or 4 years, he'll have a publication like this, which we can make use of. 95 out of 102 patients achieved complete resolution of autoimmune markers and inflammatory markers within 9 months. The other 7 all had reduced markers, but incomplete resolution. 80 out of 102 patients were weaned from all immunosuppressive and or biologic medications without rebound. Pretty interesting. Now here's an excerpt from the data collected by Dr. Seinelet of France. Now, Dr. Seinelet is arguably the most competent and productive doctor in the history of medicine. At one point, he saw some of his rheumatoid arthritis patients were going into remission by eliminating all grains and all dairy. So he was a very capable immunologist. He had almost 200 peer-reviewed publications, over 90 in international journals. So at this stage of his career, he had the toolkit to make really good decisions. So he collected impeccable data for about 20 years on 2,500 patients on the grain-free, dairy-free diet. He first wanted all raw, but so many of his patients couldn't tolerate that, so he says below 230 degrees Fahrenheit, all cooking. I've been doing some experiments lately with like baked goods, and I get heartburn if I bake them at 350, but if I bake them at 220 or 230, I don't get heartburn. Heartburn, I think, is much more than just acidity. I think it's the glycotoxins that are created at high temperature are based upon what my experiments could be involved in a reflux. So anyway, This is one of the charts from Dr. Seinley's book. I don't know if I can hold it close enough so you can see it, but his books are available. It's online. So I hope you can see that. I also discovered using the magnifier on my phone, I can take a picture of this, and then I can go up and hook it up to my computer and print it out. Or I could learn how to use PowerPoint and then just move this as a slide onto a PowerPoint. But like I said, I have to decide where I'm going to delegate my energy. You know, and I'm concentrating as much as I can on the COVID-19. And then I have to do other things, you know, to stay sane. The little bit I've got left. So out of 297 patients with rheumatoid arthritis, 82% had measurable improvement, 127 had full remission. And of 39 with psoriatic arthritis, 92% had measurable improvement, and 15 had full remission. So me, myself, I'm in the category that doesn't get full remission by just dietary changes. So, but I stick with them because they make a big difference with the osteoarthritis, and they make a big difference with a whole lot of other diseases. So, and actually I'm really enjoying the food I'm eating. It's wonderful. It's delicious. But the fasting gets easier and easier. I think last week I went 3 days without eating. Felt really good. Ate one hefty meal, but it was actually smaller than I usually eat. And then I went 40 hours fasting without being hungry. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting when I plan my food. I have to think, well, I might go 3 days without eating. You know, I may only eat 3 or 4 meals this week, the coming week. So it's kind of, I have about, I guess, 10 to 12 more pounds to lose. I don't look heavy, but it's all concentrated on my belly, and there's a little bit on my waists, that's the worst spot to have it. So we'll get into that about some other time. Let me stop talking here. Thank you for listening. Okay, this is going to be a video of how I make my autoimmune formula. I have a autoimmune disease. It's either rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis or some variation. It was very debilitating, and I got a lot of my ideas from an interview of Vince Giuliano by Joseph Cohen of Self-Hacked. This was back in 2016. And I'll go into details about, what led me to make this formula, how things have gone. And I'll do that probably earlier and just blend that into this video. So there's a lot of herbs here. The main ones are going to be ashwagandha, boswellia, curcumin, and ginger. And I also, those are the 4 that Vince used in his formula, which he actually has a product on the market, and I have no financial connection with that. Now I also, when I started, I added Chinese peony. It's called here white peony root. And I added Pau D'Arco. It's an extract, it's a 4-to-1 concentrate. Pau D'Arco is very interesting because it's got compounds in it that interrupt the same pathways as leflunomide. Chinese peony is very interesting because it's hepatoprotective. It protects the liver from being damaged, and it also works synergistically with methotrexate. And it's been tested in large clinical trials, I think 3 of them, in combination with methotrexate. And it helps either reduce the dosage or it just enhances the effect. but it also protects the liver. That's pretty interesting because liver damage is often a common side effect of methotrexate. And then I was adding Cordyceps for a while, but I stopped using Cordyceps. It's Cordyceps sinensis, I think. I stopped using it because there was a very small, yeah, it's sinensis. There's a militaris also on the market, but there's a small in vitro trial that showed that it didn't actually increase the proliferation of a certain line of prostate cancer cells. Just 4 or 5 of them they used in the lab. So anyway, that's why I stopped the Cordyceps. There were a couple of other ones I stopped because soursop. There was I think it was an island in the Pacific where people were eating a lot of soursop, and it was they think it was contributing to Parkinson's. So that's also in a local fruit. It's a delicious fruit. I was eating it for a couple of years until I found out about that. Pawpaw. So anyway, I'm gonna weigh out these things. The weights will be in the description, and that's pretty boring. Okay, the mixture is done. I added some cinnamon to help make it taste better. I guess it depends, you know, what your taste buds are. So I'm putting 3 drops of rosemary essential oil and 3 drops of geranium essential oil, and this will help slow down oxidation. So now I'll weigh this out. I weighed the jar already. Okay, 1639. So this will go in the refrigerator. I'll calculate the dosage later. I gotta make sure and mark it good so I don't get confused with my other formulas. Now I calculated the cost of one of my formulas, and doing it this way, it was 1/9. 1/9 of the cost using the regular amount of herbs without liposomal. So the this is the Autoimmune. What did I say? It was 1639. Okay, so I think that covers that. And thank you for listening.